Hey everyone, welcome back to the Swiftly Sung Stories podcast. I'm Jen, your Swifty English teacher, and today we are tackling track 4 in my track-by-track analysis of the life of a showgirl. And we're diving straight into the epic narrative of Father Figure. In my last few episodes, I analyzed Taylor's prologue poem and the first 3 tracks of this album, so you might want to go and check those out. It lays a lot of groundwork for understanding the themes and motifs in this album that Taylor's really exploring. And a quick PSA, all of this content is available on my website if you want the text version with annotated lyrics. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can also find me wherever you get your podcasts and vice versa. Okay, let's roll straight into Father Figure, line by line. Welcome to Swiftly Sung Stories, where we unpack the Taylor Swift universe one era, album, and lyric at a time. Think of it like English class, but it's all Taylor Swift and none of the boring stuff. I'm Jen, your Swifty English teacher, and class is in session, so come on in and meet me in the margins. I lied, I have a caveat first. If you watched any of my previous videos, you will know that I don't talk about Taylor Swift's personal life unless it's crucial to breaking down the meaning of her lyrics, or unless she is quite obviously pointing to something personal. I'm not here to discover what Taylor Swift did, I'm trying to discover what the art does and what the art says. This track, Father Figure, unlike the previous 3 songs on the album, doesn't seem to discuss any romantic relationships at all. It seems to be strictly an allegory about her career in the music industry. That's my read of it, and I think that's kind of the general consensus. So I think it's important that we set up a little bit of context in that regard so we can understand the themes and the undertones of these lyrics. Father Figure is an interpolation of George Michael's legendary song Father Figure, which is similarly about a power struggle between a father figure and his pseudo-son. In that song, George Michael writes about the son as a romantic partner, but Taylor has taken out all of the romance and inserted a business relationship. And there's one business relationship she has had in her career that probably inspired this track, and that's what we need some context around. I did a full deep dive on the Masters dispute in my timeline of Taylor Swift's career videos, so check that out if you want the full story. But the long and the short of it is, Taylor has been on a quest for the past 6 years or so, and it is the quest to reclaim and finally own her master recordings of her first 6 albums. Just this past May 2025, she announced that she had finally done that. But here's how this whole thing started. Taylor Swift signed with Big Machine Records, owned and run by Scott Borchetta, in 2005. This was a brand new label, and she was one of his first and only artists. And these two had a very father figure and mentor type of relationship, according to everything she revealed back then. But keep in mind, she was 15 when she signed a 13-year contract. That was essentially, as she calls it in this lyrics, a deal with the devil. The contract gave her label, and not herself, ownership of her life's work. And her life's work would go on to become incredibly, incredibly valuable. Taylor left Big Machine after she released Reputation in 2017, and we don't know the full story around why. It could have just been that her contract was up and she found greener grass elsewhere, but it could be because some of the themes that she is discussing in this track. After she left, Scott sold the label and therefore the master recordings of Taylor's first 6 albums, and he sold it to Scooter Braun, who was the bullish manager behind Kanye at the time, and he was generally seen as just a sleazy dude who was incredibly disrespectful not only to Taylor but to all women. Taylor voiced her anger at her life's work being traded like stocks, but we never really got to know how that really felt to be betrayed by a person who you not only worked with, but with whom you had this kind of familial, close relationship. And though she's probably written about this situation before in songs like My Tears Ricochet and Mad Woman, and It's Time to Go, Father Figure really lays it out all really clearly. Now, this is only my assumption, and Father Figure could have been inspired by something else entirely, or it could just be a general allegory about how the industry preys on young artists in general. But to me, the anger in this song feels personal. It feels close to home, just like the anger in Mad Woman and in My Tears Ricochet. And I'm going to dissect it through this lens because it makes the most sense to me. But if you have alternative interpretations, please leave them in the comments. There are no right or wrong answers. My opinion is different than your opinion, and that is the whole point. Art is subjective, and what the song means to you is really what matters. We may never get to know exactly what inspired Taylor to write it, but it's really more about the feelings that it inspires in you and inspires in me, because that's what art is supposed to do. Okay, let's get into the first verse of Father Figure. The first verse begins, "When I found you, you were young, wayward, lost in the cold." So we are inside the point of view of the father figure right now, but Taylor is going to switch up the point of view towards the end. But right now we are inside this older, wiser character, and he's narrating finding this lost, wayward soul that he thinks he can rescue. If you think you've heard this story before, it is a well-worn trope. A powerful savior finds a vulnerable person in need of help, and in his view, this person needs guidance, they're wayward, they're lost in the cold. But as we will learn shortly, he has ulterior motives, and this is all a game of exploitation. "Pulled up to you in the Jag," it continues. He's metaphorically sending his chariot to pick up this young person and whisk them away to a life of glamour. He turned your rags into gold, meaning he took something shabby and made it shine. But to turn rags into gold also reminds us of Rumpelstiltskin, which was a fairy tale popularized by the Brothers Grimm. And in that fairy tale, a father brags that his daughter can spin straw into gold. The greedy king kidnaps this daughter and locks her in a tower, which towers are going to come up elsewhere on this album as well, until she turns all of his straw into gold. This is, of course, an impossible task, until Rumpelstiltskin appears out of nowhere, kind of like pulling up in the Jag. This little elfin trickster says he can spin the straw into gold, but it'll cost this girl. It'll cost her her necklace, her ring, jewelry is also a big theme on this album, and her firstborn child. She agrees because there's no other way out, and the gold is spun and the king is satisfied and everyone goes on about their lives. But later in life, she gives birth to a child, and Rumpelstiltskin comes to collect. Unless she can guess his name, he says, he will take the baby. She does end up guessing, and Rumpelstiltskin kind of disintegrates before her eyes. We can see a lot of parallels between the story of Father Figure, Taylor's professional life, and Rumpelstiltskin. They're all stories about power struggles. But this fairy tale also named the so-called Rumpelstiltskin principle, which states that true power lies in a name. If you can name something, you hold a position of power over it. So we have to ask, how powerful is the name Taylor Swift? And how powerful is the name Scott Borchetta? After the father figure whisks away the youngster, the winding road leads to the chateau. The metaphorical road to success will lead to riches, symbolized by the chateau. But important to note is that the father figure is in the driver's seat here. He's behind the steering wheel of the Jag, the golden chariot, and he's fully in charge. "You remind me of a younger me," she goes on. "I saw potential." But as is often the case with controlling parents, they're trying to live out their failed dreams through their offspring. And this father is no different. So there's lots of foreshadowing going on. We can see that nothing is quite right, and this will play out more in the chorus. So the chorus begins, "I'll be your father figure. I drink that brown liquor." He's establishing this power dynamic here. He's older, as illustrated by his very adult choice of alcohol. He's more worldly. He'll guide his protégé through the world. But as we will learn later, he doesn't ever want his son to actually grow up. If this song was intended as a tale about Taylor's former manager, Scott Borchetta, this could be a clue. Scott Borchetta owns Big Machine Distillery, which is kind of not affiliated with Big Machine Records, I guess, which brews bourbon, a brown liquor. We could also look at this liquor metaphor as he picked his poison, like, pick your poison, babe, I'm poison either way. And it'll come back around in the final chorus where that interpretation feels a bit more obvious. "I can make deals with the devil because my dick's bigger." He's boasting that his ego and his clout are so oversized that he can sell souls willy-nilly, never having to see any real repercussions. He's too big to fail, as illustrated by his quote-unquote manhood. But in making deals with the devil, she's implying that he's already sold his soul. He is already soulless. And we can tell that this character is pretty soulless. He says, "This love is pure profit." This is finally saying the quiet part out loud. Now we see his true intention, although we kind of knew what it was before. But he's in it for the money. He sees his protege as a cash cow, and calling it "this love" really reveals this deception too. He's disguising his greed as familial love. Then he says, "Just step into my office. This love is pure profit. Just step into my office." This is the big bad wolf dressing up as grandma. But by the time Little Red Riding Hood sees who he really is, my, what big teeth you have, grandma, it'll be too late. He's luring this child into a business relationship, as illustrated by The Office, and we get the feeling that what happens behind closed doors will not be good. We don't get to find out exactly what, but it's ominous. "I dry your tears with my sleeve." He's pretending to be the caring father to get what he really wants, but it's really only a ploy to get the young boy to trust him. This is an intimate gesture. He's not getting a Kleenex. He's not getting a handkerchief. He's going to use his own sleeve. But it's all a play to get this young boy to love and trust him. So, "I'll dry your tears with my sleeve." And then he says, "Leave it with me." In business speak, just means I'll take care of it. Leave your problems here and I'll make them go away. But "leave it with me" is a loaded phrase, and it's going to change meaning a few times as the song goes on. But here it's referring to tears. "Leave your sorrow with me, and I will make whatever is making you sad go away." But Taylor has referred to the tears of this particular relationship, or the relationship we assume that this song is about, before, and she referred to it in "It's Time to Go." 15 years, 15 million tears, begging till my knees bled. I gave it my all, he gave me nothing at all, then wondered why I left. She did leave her tears with him, but he was this false prophet. He wasn't a savior. He caused the tears. And in the very end of the chorus, he says, "I protect the family." As we've already found out, his idea of family isn't based on love or caring. For him, the family is pure profit. He's only protecting his own wealth, and he'll pretend to be a happy family to get what he wants out of his children. What exactly the family means, though, will also shift and change as the song goes on, just like we'll get different meanings of "leave it with me." So we'll come back to that. The second verse starts, "I pay the check before it kisses the mahogany grain." We're still inside the mind of the father figure, and the literal meaning is that he'll pick up the check and take care of it before the server even comes and plops it down. It's prearranged that he's going to pay the bill. But the larger meaning is that he'll take care of problems before his son is even aware of them. And the mahogany grain imagery is a really clever piece of imagery because it tells us that we're in this fancy restaurant without saying it outright. But we're in this fancy restaurant and he's going to pay the check. But whose money is paying for that very expensive check? Who earned that money? So he goes on, said, "They want to see you rise. They don't want you to reign." He's saying this directly to his protege. The industry wants to see him entertain, he's telling the protege, but they don't want him to have any real power. So we can see that he's trying to keep this power balance in check by sort of cutting down any big ideas before they bloom. The use of reign is really interesting. Reign as in rule, like rule the kingdom. And this ties into so many similar metaphors in Taylor's universe, where she's often used fairy tale and monarchy metaphors to represent her career. In Long Live, we were the kings and queens. In Call It What You Want, my castle crumbled overnight. There's the entirety of the Bejeweled music video, and so on and so on. Her career is often her castle or her kingdom. But the father figure is trying to prevent her from reigning over that metaphorical kingdom. She's also used this particular metaphor before to refer to this business relationship. Also in It's Time to Go, she says, now he sits on his throne in his palace of bones, praying to his greed. He's got my past frozen behind glass, but I've got me. So we can imagine these two metaphorical castles, one in which Taylor reigns and the crowd is your king. And then there's this juxtaposing castle, this palace of bones, which this villain character has built for himself. In one kingdom, the crowd rules, and in the other, greed rules. He goes on in the second verse, I showed you all the tricks of the trade, which basically means I taught you everything I know. And this echoes a line from Taylor's prologue poem, we learn these tricks of the trade. But we get the sense he's not doing it out of the kindness of his heart. He wants payback. He wants this young boy to be successful so that he can profit. And in turn for all this mentoring, all I ask is for your loyalty, my dear protege. And what this really means is I will give you success beyond your wildest dreams. And all I ask is you sell your soul to me. It's threatening. It's not even really vaguely threatening. It's don't cross me because I built you up and I can tear you down. But it's also, the language here is infantilizing. The way he talks to the boy is my dear protege. It's not just dear protege, it's my dear protege. The boy's identity is only in relation to the father figure, as if he doesn't even have his own name or his name doesn't matter. We move into the second chorus where the first 5 lines remain the same. I'll be your father figure, I drink that brown liquor, etc. But our narrator then changes the last line. Instead of I dry your tears with my sleeve, instead it's they'll know your name in the streets. They'll know your name throughout the land, he's saying. But we also know that he doesn't want his protege to reign. He promises fame, but he only promises that the boy will have notoriety. He doesn't promise success or legacy or an adoring public or any kind of power. The undertone is they will know my name because I'm the one who created you. I'm the great and powerful Oz behind the curtain, and you're just the face of this operation. I'm really the one who pulls the strings. So it's they'll know your name in the streets, and then leave it with me repeats. This time, leave it with me is about his name. Leave your name with me, which means leave your reputation, your career, your success, your money, your legacy with me. I own you, is essentially what he's saying. And in the context of the Master's Heist, this is pretty chilling. The second chorus closes out with another I protect the family. But after all of these threatening promises, the family starts to feel really mafia coded. And the father figure is this head honcho. And what happens in organized crime when the underlings don't play by the rules? They're taken out. This connotation will become a little bit clearer later on when we hear from the protege's point of view, and that protege is also going to use this sort of mobster language. But the whole of the second chorus is essentially saying, I own you, and don't bite the hand that feeds you. It's a threat. I've built you up, I can tear you down. But this power dynamic is about to change. And it changes right here in the bridge. So as we enter the bridge, this is where we get to see the protege get a little bit of independence. I saw a change in you, the father figure says. The protege has gotten wise to his tricks. It's not you're growing up or look how far you come. It's you've changed and I don't like it. Or you started talking back and you need to shut up. It's threatening. It's go back to the way things were. My dear boy, they don't make loyalty like they used to. There's that infantilizing language again with my dear boy, speaking to him like a baby. But the key word there again is my, which is reinforcing his ownership. They don't make loyalty like they used to is a really indirect way of saying you and your generation aren't playing by the rules of the old guard. He's upset because he's losing control. The boy isn't obeying anymore. But instead of their relationship evolving with time, the father figure just wants it back the way it was. So it goes on, your thoughtless ambition sparked the ignition on foolish decision which led to misguided visions. So thoughtless ambition means that the boy has these lofty aspirations, but the father figure thinks it's just silly or stupid. This stupidity is what led to what he thinks are foolish decisions made on the basis of these misguided visions. We got a lot of rhyming tongue twisters here. The connotation, though, is you were thinking on your own again, weren't you? I told you that I'm only allowed to think thoughts about your career. You can't be thinking again. But what he can't see is that these misguided visions only look that way to him. For the boy, the path forward is perfectly clear. There's just something in the way, and what's in the way is the father figure. So the misguided visions are that to fulfill your dreams, you had to get rid of me. The boy thinks that the only way forward to have the career and the life that he wants is to sever ties with the controlling and abrasive and possibly abusive father figure. And he's right. And get rid of him he does, because it's at this point that we no longer hear from the father figure at all. He disappears from the narrative altogether. You had to get rid of me, and then our narrator switches to the protege. The father figure is totally gone. The protege gets rid of the father figure in this narrative and in his life. So there's kind of a meta moment going on here. And then the next line is my favorite. I protect the family. And this is a whispered line. We've swapped narrators and points of view. And this is really the most chilling and potent line in the whole song, even though we've heard it before. This time the meaning is totally different. The boy is now fully grown, is now our narrator, and the rest of the story is from his perspective. He's in control now, and he protects the family, his life, his legacy, his reputation, his work. But what this also means when he says, I protect the family, it's you are no longer my family. You were my father figure, and now you are a nobody. But what makes this line so powerful is the use of multiple points of view, or switching narrators while she's telling the story. And she's used this a few times before in songs like The Last Great American Dynasty and When Emma Falls in Love. But for me, this is the most powerful time she's ever used it. In a song about a power struggle, even our narrators are battling for the mic. And in the end, the student surpasses the master and takes control of both this narrative, this story, and his own life and legacy. In the context of the master's heist and the reclaiming of her master recordings, she does now protect the family. And the family is her life's work, her first 6 albums. She protects her family now, her music, her brand, her career. And it's a really brilliant use of multiple points of view. And in the final chorus, we get to hear more from the protege character and what was really going on behind the scenes. So the final chorus is entirely in the point of view of the protege, who is now all grown up and has kicked the father figure out of the metaphorical house. And it begins, I was your father figure. I was your father figure. My, how the tables have turned. Looking back, he realizes, wait, I was the one with all of the power because it was my hard work. It was my blood, sweat, and tears and foolish decisions and misguided visions that got us here. Because what is a father figure anyway? It's someone you look up to, someone who takes care of you out of love and not out of control. It's someone who's more mature, someone who shows you all the tricks of the trade in life. And the protege realizes that he was his own father figure all along and was really the leader of this whole situation. So what was the father figure? He was a manipulator. The protege had it in him all along, and while the father figure may have given him an initial big break or discovered him, it was always through his own blood, sweat, and tears that success arrives. The power dynamic may have started in the opposite direction, but now the tables have turned. And he goes on, we drank that brown liquor. They were both the adults, and they both picked their metaphorical poison together. For the father figure, the poison was greed, but for the protege, the poison, in fact, was aligning himself with this sleazeball to get where he wanted to be. In the context of Scott Borchetta and Big Machine Distillery, we drank that brown liquor means we built this together. It was never just yours. It was also mine. Big Machine would be nothing without me. But this liquor could also symbolize something else entirely, and it's totally open to interpretation. Please let me know what you think the liquor means in the comments, because it's really an intriguing metaphor that could have so many different meanings. So the protege goes on, you made a deal with this devil. Turns out my dick's bigger. The deal with the devil wasn't some abstract selling of souls for money and power. He made a deal with the protege, who turns out to be the devil. The father figure may have tried to sell the soul of the child, but now the protege owns his own soul, and he's not done yet. He's coming back for more. He's outgrown his teacher, and now he has more clout and more power. And in the context of the master's dispute, my dick's bigger means one of a few things. One, Taylor has more money and more power than Borchetta now, which of course she does. And two, she's taken on this role that is traditionally reserved for only men. The boss, the mafia don, the money bags, the father figure. This is an emasculating dig when she says, my dick's bigger. She doesn't have a dick, but it's still bigger than his. It's a brilliant bit of lyricism. So it goes on, you want to fight, you found it. I got the place surrounded. He's putting up his fists and ready to protect what's his. There's no escape for the father figure turned enemy, because the protege is now the one with all the power. He's thought of every angle. His most powerful ally has turned into his most powerful enemy. He bit the hand that fed him, and now he pays the price. You'll be sleeping with the fishes before you know you're drowning. And this line pulls in another mafia-coded phrase. If he tries to cross his former student, then he'll be quickly and quietly taken out and tossed in the East River. It's so Sopranos coded. I love it. And the next line just keeps getting better. Whose portrait's on the mantle? This is his metaphorical house or chateau or castle or kingdom. And it always has been. He's saying, I built this. My name is on the deed. I built you. If it weren't for me, you would be a nobody. And I've always been the face of this operation, but I also wrote the checks. I've always owned you, not the other way around. Then it gets a little scandalous. Who covered up your scandals? So he's saying, I have all the power now, but he's also implying that he's got enough dirt to bury his former father figure. He's saying, I hold all the cards. And do you remember all that shit that you did? Yeah, I remember. I have the evidence. So if you ever try to step up and take what's mine, you are going down. If he crosses this mafia don, the truth will come out and his reputation will be absolutely ruined, as if it isn't already. Mistake my kindness for weakness and find your card canceled. So our protege turned father figure is tougher than he looks. And while he may be kind, he's never been weak. And this is something that women are often mistaken for. We are mistaken for weak just because we're nice. Find your card cancel implies that the father figure is still on the payroll. But what he's saying is that can change in the flip of the switch. I was your father figure, he says again. You pulled the wrong trigger. Instead of firing with him at their mutual enemies, he fired at him, and that shot could trigger a full-out war. This empire belongs to me, closes out the final chorus. He built his own empire, and while the father figure may have jump-started this whole business, he should never forget whose name is on the deed to this entire property. It's an incredibly valuable property. So it's this empire belongs to me, and then one more time, leave it with me is repeated. This time the it is referring to this empire. This empire belongs to me, leave it with me. It's not, I'll take care of it. It's, don't take it, it's mine. It was never yours. And in the context of the master's heist, this means I now own all my life's work. You tried to take it and sell it, but look who owns it all now. You should have done the right thing and let me buy it in the first place, but you didn't. and now you pay the price. I protect the family, he repeats, leave it with me. This time it's leave my family with me, or you're no longer a part of the family. This could be an actual family, as in Taylor's family, but more than likely, she's still talking about her life's work. The family is her albums and her empire, and it's not his family to protect anymore because it never was in the first place. He was a father figure, not a father. So this time, leave it with me essentially means get out of my family, get out of my life, you're done. Then the final line is, you remind me of a younger me. I saw potential. This is a brilliant, chilling last line. And we can read it one of two ways. One, when he looks back on his former ally, it reminds him of when he was young. It's like that line from Dear John, don't you think I was too young to be messed with? It reminds him of when he wasn't as worldly or powerful or street smart. He was suckered into a bum deal. But the second way is to read it as straight satire and sarcasm. Like, I saw potential. Like, too bad you messed up in such an epic way and crossed me, because now look where you are. Like, you could have been so much more and you really fucked up. You're a nobody now, just like I used to be. You had potential and now you have none. But either way, no matter how we interpret it, we have come full circle. The student has become the master, and the master has become a nobody. And in the real world, where Taylor owns her life's work and is the most recognizable name and face on the planet, who even is Scott Borchetta anyway? This is my favorite track on the album for many reasons, but primarily it's because of her storytelling here. She tells such a vivid story from beginning to end. And by the time it's over, we can see that it was really an allegory about power and the patriarchy. And though she's likely told this story before in My Tears Ricochet and It's Time to Go and Long Story Short and others, she's never been able to tell it from the other side of the conflict, from the other side of the mountain. Though we don't know exactly when she wrote the song, it does kind of feel like closure of this narrative thread that she's been spinning about the master's dispute. And now that it's over and she owns her life's work, she can look back at the entire relationship and not just how it ended. She seems to see that it was doomed from the start because it was a tainted power dynamic. But now that she's gained all of her power back and her master's back, she can see that it was really her all along. He may have given her the big break in the beginning, but it was her work that got her where she is today. In the rest of this album, she's really telling us the story about this pedestal of fame and what it feels like and how precarious it seems. But in Father Figure, she's really telling us what it took to get there. Like in Elizabeth Taylor, she says, oftentimes it doesn't feel so glamorous to be me. And we can see that her building this career wasn't glamorous at all. It was painful and full of manipulators and false father figures, and she had to overcome so many obstacles that the patriarchy put in her way. But now she looks at the view from the top of her pedestal or her tower or her throne, and she sees how the tables have turned. A lot of the rest of this album deals with this shady side of show business and how it's impossible to trust anyone when everyone has an ulterior motive for knowing you. Everyone has something to gain by knowing you, and you have nothing to gain by knowing other people. It's the battle between the showgirl and the girl. And in Father Figure, we really get to see the origin story of this conflict. The father figure may have shown the girl how to become the showgirl, but once she did that, putting on her show, it was entirely by her own hand. And she's realizing that she created herself, and she entered into this world where these two selves will constantly be at war. Just like she's at war with this former father figure, it's also a war within herself and against herself. And in the end, the song is asking the same question that almost every other song on this album is asking. If they're here for the show, what does that mean for the girl? Thank you so much for joining me. That's a wrap for Father Figure. Next episode, we're going to tackle track 5 of the notorious Track 5's Eldest Daughter. If you found this insightful or entertaining or anything at all, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment. I am just starting this podcast and it really, really helps. Once again, you can find all of my lyrical analysis on my website, linked in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next track. That's it for this chapter of Swiftly Sung Stories. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please don't forget to follow, subscribe, or leave a review. It helps other Swifties find their way here. I'm Jen, and I had a marvelous time reading everything with you. See you next time.